Our story begins with Ian, a student of great beauty who is part of the nerd club. However, her life on campus is full of dangers, as she has rivals in the athletes led by Lee, a muscular and aggressive guy. The athletes are known for their lack of intelligence, and they end up stealing some exams. However, Ian discovers this and demands that they return the exams, threatening expulsion if they don't comply. At that moment, a few guys approach, and when Ian tries to escape, Lee blocks her path, trying to intimidate her with his dominant glare. But Ian doesn't seem afraid, and as she moves away, someone trips her, just as she is about to flee. Lee, with all his strength and passion, catches her. Then, by accident, the loudspeaker turns on, and everyone hears Lee trying to flirt with her. Ian responds that he is disgusting and selfish. After that, she meets Zhu, her science classmate, who has a crush on her. He explains that everyone heard her argument with Lee, resulting in everyone laughing at her online. She decides to get revenge during gym class. Lee takes advantage of the moment to approach Ian, stretching her like she's a piece of gum, almost breaking all her bones. Then, Ian leans in close to Lee's lips, and he just wants to kiss her, while Zhu watches jealously. Then Lee mocks Ian, and she gets so irritated that the two groups start a ball competition that ends in a big argument. The principal gets so angry that he calls them into his office. There, Lee explains that it was the science students who provoked first, but Ian replies that it was the athlete's fault and calls Lee a liar. So the three of them are punished with a task of copying texts. And that's not all. The principal warns that he will merge the two classes to put an end to the fighting. As revenge, Lee and his friends decide to play a prank on Ian. They shake up a soda, and when Ian enters the store and opens it, her face and shirt get covered in foam. Seeing Lee laughing outside, she becomes furious and decides to retaliate by stripping all the boys in the locker room. This forces Lee to run almost naked across campus, chasing the science students. Soon after, a teacher discovers them and orders them to line up. A friend of Ian confesses that she thinks Lee is very handsome, and Ian covers her friend's eyes so she won't be hypnotized. But she can't help but look at his strong muscles. When Lee notices she's looking at him, he smiles happily and winks at her, which makes her very nervous. Then they plan to glue Zhu's chair, but it ends up being Ian's chair. When she tries to get up, she realizes she's stuck, and they rip part of her pants, leaving her butt exposed. Desperate, Ian hears Lee apologize, saying it was an accident. Furious, Ian tells him to stay away from her, making him feel very guilty, and he ends up hitting his friend for messing up the chair. The two classes separate, and on the first day, Lee argues with Ian, who is the main monitor, saying he will keep them under surveillance to prevent any trouble. The teacher puts Lee in the center of the classroom to keep an eye on him. Suddenly, Ian wants to go to the bathroom, and Zhu offers to accompany her, but Lee steps in and chases her down the halls like a student anxious for his love. Sarcastically, Lee asks to be friends because he doesn't want any more fights. When she tries to escape, he holds her, bringing their faces close together, but Ian hits him in the face with her hair, leaving him in shock while he touches his cheek, filled with deep love for her. Then Zanzi, a girl who has a crush on Zhu, pretends to trip and fall into Zhu's arms, but he rejects her because who he really likes is Ian. Zanzi thinks some boys are laughing at her and throws her shoes in the trash. When Lee arrives, he tries to calm the situation, but a bully says athletes are trash, and Lee starts a fight defending his honor. Everyone gets scared except Ian, who steps in and confronts him like a rabid dog out of its cage. Lee asks him to take the blame in front of everyone, and he becomes so melted by Ian's gaze that he apologizes. After that, they go to dinner, and Lee sees Ian with a boy behaving intimately, making him suspect he is her boyfriend, but he holds on a bit. Just don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next summaries. Continuing, the next day, Lee sees the same boy with a student to whom he hands a love letter, which makes Lee even angrier. Lee gathers his love in the classroom and begs her not to go out with any boys. Ian gets confused by his behavior, as one day he seems to love her and the next he hates her. Then, Lee observes Zhu helping Ian stretch gently and feels so jealous that he stands up and shouts, not realizing everyone is watching. When Ian gets up irritated, she faints due to her period. Immediately, both boys take care of her like a queen, fighting to touch her. When they call Zhu, Lee is left alone with her and becomes her personal nurse, paying special attention to her and her lips. Lee asks for her arm to care for, and although she initially refuses, she eventually accepts with kindness, blowing on her wound. Seeing this, Zhu decides to leave because he realizes there is a sweet love between them. Ian feels nervous when suddenly the previous boy, who supposedly is her boyfriend, appears. Lee discovers that he is actually Ian's younger brother, which makes him even happier because now that she is single, he decides to follow her everywhere, seeking her love and asking for her phone number. Ian refuses the request, leaving Lee sad. He doesn't understand why all the girls give their numbers to his friend but not to him. His friend confesses that Lee should be kinder to Ian, so he comes up with a plan to win her over. He threatens a bookstore owner to get a book he has desired for years. But Zhu also gets the book, and she prefers to go with her friend, leaving Lee looking foolish. After that, Ian finds out that Lee will be her lab partner, and annoyed, she asks to be switched, but the teacher doesn't allow it. On the first day, to her surprise, Ian sees that Lee is excited to learn and looks at her plump lips with passion. However, he soon begins to act silly, driving her crazy. Discovering that he is afraid of the dark, Ian plans to scare him with the help of her friend. Ian tells Lee to accompany her to the basement, warning him it's full of spiders, which makes him increasingly scared, causing him to protect himself behind her. Suddenly, a ghost named Liv appears, and the first thing she does is protect her beloved, surprising her with his love. But a spider crawls on the ghost's head, and as she tries to get rid of it, they discover that the ghost is Ian's friend. Lee gets very angry, and to disguise it, Ian replies that it was a test to see how brave he was, which makes him even more irritated. He promises to be the best student in school to prove that he can be her lab partner. Then, Ian gives him her phone number, and he feels like he's in love heaven, spending hours looking at his phone, waiting for a message from her. Realizing that the message doesn't arrive, he goes to the gym to impress Ian with his muscles. Then comes the chemistry exam, and Lee tries to flirt with Ian instead of paying attention to the test, mixing the chemicals incorrectly, causing an explosion. Fire begins to spread, and the students evacuate as smoke fills the area, making Ian fall to the ground, almost unable to breathe. Scared, Ian remembers a past trauma when her house caught fire on her birthday, resulting in the death of a friend. Lee realizes that Ian is still in the building and searches for her everywhere, without fear of dying, managing to rescue her safely from the building. Ian asks if Lee is hurt, and upon seeing a tear in his pants, she disinfects the wound on his leg while he gets mesmerized by her eyes. Lee admits he broke his promise because he didn't pass the test, but Ian responds that saving his life is much more important. Then the principal looks for the person responsible for the fire. Ian takes the blame, but Lee won't allow it and offers to take the punishment in his place, sacrificing himself for his beloved. After that, Lee begins to struggle with the tasks, and Ian offers to help, which makes him emotional. He asks for help in chemistry, math, and any subject because, in truth, he takes every moment to get closer to her and admire her eyes that make him fall in love. But he's not the only one, as Lee's smile makes Ian nervous to the point that she slaps his head so he stops looking at her and focuses on the task. Then Lee feels hungry, and while eating a cookie, the teacher asks him to read aloud, but with food in his mouth, he seems to speak an alien language. Later, Ian's family needs money, and Lee gives her a discount card, but she realizes she lost it and starts searching through every trash can in the world until Zhu stops her, fearing she'll hurt her hands. Ian gets sad for disappointing Lee, who is upset that she lost the card. He assures her by holding her hand until she pulls her hair, and the two start a public fight. He shouts that she is spoiled, and Ian apologizes so sweetly that little by little he melts and forgives her. The next day, Zhu is very nice to Ian, and when Lee sees him caressing her head, he imitates the gesture but does it so forcefully that he hurts her. Ian asks if he's crazy. Lee wants to know if Zhu is her boyfriend, and she replies that he is just a close friend. They fight so much that the teacher punishes them. After that, Lee practices for the race under Ian's gaze, and during recess, she asks why he likes running so much. He replies that when he runs, he feels free and, above all, it keeps him away from the bad things happening around him. Finally, race day arrives, and as Zanzi pretends to be injured, Ian offers to run even with her hurt foot. The race starts, and she speeds off with all her strength as if chasing a K-pop singer. When passing the baton, Ian falls, and Lee stops to worry about her. Ian asks him to keep running, and he runs with all the love, thinking of her smile. Ian is hurt, and they help her up. She can't win, but soon feels happy because a photo of her and Lee together, with a very cute height difference, is posted online, and everyone says they would make a great couple. After that, Lee dresses as a turtle as punishment for losing the race, and everyone takes out their phones to take pictures of him. One of the bullies approaches, taking photos in his face, but Ian stops him, saying that if he takes more photos, he'll have to fight her. His friends appear dressed as turtles to keep him company, which lessens Lee's embarrassment, leaving him emotional. Then they organize a plan to ridicule the previous boy, making him collect 100,000 trays of food. When Ian leaves, she finds Lee waiting for her and looks at him with a burning passion she has never known. Along the way, they decide to go for dinner, and Ian is enchanted by Lee's smile, which asks worriedly if everything is okay. Ian tries to hide that her only desire is to feel his lips against her skin. They receive their exam scores, and Ian gets mad at Lee because he failed. If this continues, they won't be able to go to the same university, and their lives will separate. That's why Lee learns tricks to cheat on the exams, but Ian finds out and demands that he hand over all the copies he has, even one hidden in his shoe. Ian tells him he needs to be honest because she doesn't like boys who cheat. Upon hearing this, Lee promises he will pass the exam honestly. He studies non-stop until exam day and manages one of the best grades in the class. However, someone sends an email to the principal saying he cheated and provides false evidence. Ian promises in front of everyone that Lee is an honorable boy and did not cheat. The principal realizes the email was fake and apologizes to Lee over the school loudspeaker. We discover it was the bully who sent the email because he's been jealous of Lee since they were kids. After that, Ian and Lee meet and listen to music together, connecting their souls. Lee thanks Ian for helping him, and she confesses it was Zhu who discovered they were plotting against him. Then, Lee goes to Zhu's house and invites him to dinner with his parents. There, he discovers that Zhu is a computer expert, but his parents are very strict with him, and he has never known true happiness, making Ian feel pity for him. After that, Ian likes a photo of Lee on Instagram, which makes him emotional, realizing she was thinking of him. He writes a love message, but she responds that she needs to study. Still, she finds time to watch his basketball game. When Lee teaches her to shoot, he takes the opportunity to get closer to her neck and touch her hands, which give him life. They have fun like they are dating. Upon leaving, they encounter a famous idol named Jinxie, who is new in town, and all the girls scream, desiring his body. Lee accompanies Ian to the door, showing off his muscles to impress her, and Ian sweetly laughs, making Lee show off his muscles even more. The next day, a new student arrives at school, and it's Jinxie, the famous singer from before. All the girls in class jump with joy, and one nearly faints when she goes to her seat. Jinxie stops in front of Ian and greets her as if he already knows her. Lee gets confused by this closeness, and when the class ends, all the girls surround Jinxie asking for photos and kisses, but he is only interested in Ian. Seeing that she is leaving, he follows her, and Lee shouts out of jealousy. Then a crowd of fans approaches Jinxie, who grabs Ian to put her in safety. They enter a library where Jinxie forcefully covers Ian's mouth so she won't make any noise. Ian gets nervous feeling his breath so close. After the fans leave, Ian pushes Jinxie, but soon realizes he is her childhood friend with whom she used to share chocolates and thought he was dead since he disappeared the day her house caught fire. Jinxie explains that after the fire, his mom took him to another city, and when he grew up, he returned to look for her, but she had already moved away. Since then, he searched all schools until finding her. Some girls line up to get an autograph from Jinxie, and Lee feels even more jealous of him, being the most popular, especially for sitting next to Ian, as if he was about to kiss her. Therefore, Lee decides to team up with his rival Zhu to keep the idol away from Ian. Whenever they try to get closer, Lee and Zhu become a barrier that cuts off their relationship. Then Jinxie strikes back, telling Ian he needs her as a tutor to get good grades. Otherwise, his parents will send him abroad. To her surprise, she shows up with Lee and Zhu at his house for tutoring. Jinxie tries to be alone with her, but they become Ian's bodyguards, not leaving her alone for a moment. Ian eats a spoiled pizza and writhes in pain on the floor. Then Lee takes her to the hospital, where she slowly recovers, and Lee stays by her side as her personal love nurse. Lee says that, in the future, whatever she eats, he will eat it first to ensure it's in good condition. Ian thinks that's very sweet. Then Jinxie's mom scolds Ian, saying her son is not an ordinary person like them and that they shouldn't be friends. They realize that Jinxie has an evil mother. After that, the three compete for Ian's love, each with a different plan to win her over. However, it's Lee who ends up winning because every time he touches her, Ian feels a surge of pure love electricity coursing through her body. Leaving her very confused, Ian discovers that he will have to go abroad for a performance and asks Ian to go with him. Suddenly, Lee throws stones at Ian's window and invites her to a surprise. He takes her to a square where he lights very romantic lights. When they are about to kiss, Lee discovers that she might go to another country and warns her that wherever she goes, he will follow because their hearts are connected by a string stronger than time and space, and nothing can separate them. Ian smiles with happiness, and Lee says he wants to be her man for life. He gives her tickets for his last show, and everyone accepts to go except Lee, who stays training. When they arrive at the show, millions of fans are waiting, and when Jinxie steps on stage, he says he wants to talk to someone very special before singing, which is Ian. He thanks Ian for helping him gain confidence as a child and for making him a better person. Then he sings a love song dedicated to her that everyone enjoys, even though it's just for Ian. Lee learns about this and regrets not going. He rides his bike in search of his beloved. At the end of the show, the two are alone, and Jinxie asks Ian one last time to go with him abroad, but she replies that she wants to go to a good university here, not wanting to leave her family and especially not abandoning Lee, with whom she discovered true love. Ian returns the necklace Jinxie gave her, and he throws it away, saying that if she doesn't want it, he won't give it to anyone else. At that moment, Lee arrives at the stadium. His friends hold him back, and he breathes a sigh of relief, knowing Ian rejected Jinxie. Lee asks her never to leave without saying goodbye again because losing her would rip his heart out. He approaches her, illuminated by love, and she asks why he is so bossy, telling her to go to bed and dream of him. Ian feels so hot that later she feels sick and faints. Suddenly, Lee takes her to the infirmary and asks that no one tell him so he won't worry. However, Lee hears this and insists that she should eat more so she won't faint. When she turns around, he seizes the moment to get closer from behind, making Ian even more nervous. Then Lee invites her over for a date at his house. Ian changes clothes a million times and ties her hair when she meets Lee. Her beauty hits her beloved's face, and he melts for her. Lee spends all the money in the world to get her a stuffed animal. Then they train together for Lee's race, and he confesses that today is his birthday, and the best present he received was spending the day by her side. He asks her to accompany him to the race, and she asks why. He replies that if she is at the finish line, he will run much faster. Then Ian sings the sweetest birthday song, and Zhu watches them while falling even more in love with Ian, who returns home with millions of stuffed animals. His brother interrupts the love moment, but that doesn't stop Lee from dancing with happiness. His parents throw a surprise birthday party for him, and Lee goes to give a piece of cake to their neighbor Zhu, who coldly accepts it and says he doesn't want to be friends anymore. Zhu looks disdainfully at Lee in class, and he discovers that this day is the anniversary of Ian's father's death, which makes her sad. She and her brother pay a beautiful tribute to their father. It is revealed that Ian's father died of leukemia, and she faints several times, starting to think she is sick with the same thing. In the hospital, Ian asks about the symptoms of leukemia, and upon discovering they are similar, she gets so nervous that she screams desperately at her friend in front of everyone, making them all look at her. So, Ian rushes out of class, and Lee catches up with her, asking what's wrong. Ian says she is very stressed lately and lies that it's because of exams. She apologizes to her friend for yelling at her, and the two reconcile. Then, Lee asks Ian who the most handsome boy she knows is, but she doesn't answer because she goes to the library to look for a book. Not finding it, Zhu helps her and discovers the book is related to the disease that killed her father. Zhu notices red spots on Ian's arm, and she asks him to keep it a secret because she doesn't want Lee to get distracted before her important race. However, Lee sees them together all day and wonders what's going on between them. Ian asks him to trust her, and Lee, in love, fulfills her wishes and dedicates himself to making her as happy as possible until Ian starts crying, thinking she might die without giving him a kiss. She confesses to her mom about the illness, and her mom pretends to be tough but cries alone in her room. This makes Ian sad, and she tells Lee that she won't be able to attend his race. Lee falls during practice and gets hurt, but more than the physical pain, what he feels is a pain in his soul because he senses that his beloved is slipping through his fingers like a sigh in the wind, and he doesn't know why. Ian finds out that Lee got hurt and secretly gives him a bag of medicine, but he discovers it and asks why she is so cold to him, as it seems her heart doesn't love him anymore. Ian steps back to keep him from suffering from her illness. The next day, Ian takes a blood test, and her mom goes to her room at night, saying she hopes she has been a good mom. Ian replies that she is the best mom in the world, and the whole family shares a beautiful hug. Then comes the day of the competition, and Lee discovers that Ian won't show up, but his little brother sits with him and says that instead of worrying about the future, he should live in the present where the beauty of love is. Thinking of his beloved, Lee puts on his sneakers and runs as fast as he can to her arms. The race starts when he finally sees Ian in the distance. She faints, and they take her to the infirmary, where she asks about Lee's race result. They say he came in second place. Lee gets so sad that he locks himself in his room, refusing to eat. Zhu enters the room, but Lee doesn't pay attention until Zhu talks about how much Ian misses him. Finally, Lee awakens from his eternal dream and decides to find her, making her very happy. He says kind words that Zhu leaves them alone because the love between them is very strong. Ian tells Lee about her possible illness, and he asks why everyone knew about it except him. Ian was afraid of hurting his feelings. Suddenly, Ian's mom thanks Lee for always caring for her daughter with so much love. Ian feels bad for losing the race, but Lee replies that in life, there are as many defeats as victories, and his greatest victory is having her love every day. And with that, he is more than happy. After that, they go to the hospital with frozen hearts, and the doctor explains that she has a strange variation in her blood that caused the fainting, but that it's not a serious illness, and she will be fine. Ian breathes a sigh of relief along with her family for all the suffering they went through, and Lee feels as if he has been reborn from joy. The teacher also congratulates her, and they later say that he can participate in the final race. Everyone is happy except Zhu, who hides at home because he found out his mom wants to transfer him to another school because she thinks his friends are distracting him from studying. Just as Zhu is about to leave, enormous banners are put up in the school thanking him, and everyone gathers around him. Zhu gets emotional because he thought no one cared about his departure. His mom tries to take him, but everyone asks her not to transfer him because here he found his true friends who make him smile every day. Finally, Zhu faces his evil mother and says his dream is to stay here, and he doesn't intend to leave. All the classmates shout his name and fill him with hugs, celebrating his stay. After that, they study together for the last university admission exam. On test day, they wish each other good luck, although they are separated by desks, working as if they were one and happily leaving the exam, ready for a new life. However, Ian still feels something missing in her heart, so she meets Lee in a secret place where they look at each other with so much love that they can hardly bear it. Lee realizes this is the place where they first met and where their gazes crossed, just like now. He tells her she is a gift from life and confesses all his love. Ian gives him a peck on the lips. Ian and Lee hated each other, but turned that hatred into a sweet bed of passion. Did you like this summary? Then be sure to subscribe here so you don't miss the next one. Also, take a look at the one that's on your screen.